Don't you just hate it when you're sitting outside, enjoying the sun, just doing you, when you suddenly feel your arm itching and you look down to see an angry red mosquito bite? And once you start itching, it just goes downhill from there. But did you also know that not only do the mosquitoes leave us with an itchy bite, but sometimes they also pee on us? Yes, mosquitoes pee. So not only are you walking around with an itchy mosquito bite, but also their loving gift of some urine. Hi, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Thank you to all who's joined this virtual Soapbox Science. I'm very happy to be here today. So, we all love mosquitoes, right? I mean, who doesn't love coming home from the beach, the picnic, or park just covered head to toe in itchy mosquito bites? We usually say, "Oh my God, I just got bit by a mosquito." And during my pitch, I also said mosquito bite. But this wording isn't completely true. In fact, mosquitoes don't bite, they pierce our skin and suck our blood, which is why mosquitoes are also synonymous to bloodsuckers. And the real culprit here, ironically enough, since Soapbox Science is all about celebrating women scientists, but the reason why we come home with itchy bumps all over us is because of the female mosquito. So it's only the female mosquito that sucks and feeds on our blood, not the male. The poor male is usually just flying around, minding their own business, but it's the female mosquito who flies around, targeting us yummy humans, choosing their victim, and taking our blood. So at this point, you might be asking why? Why is it that it's only the female mosquitoes that take our blood and not the male? Well, the only reason why female mosquitoes suck our blood is for their babies. So they need the nutrients and vitamins from our blood to help develop her eggs. And from that one blood meal that she takes from us, she's able to lay up to 200 eggs at once. So imagine that. Just a couple minutes of taking our blood, we've now helped create up to 200 more mosquitoes in the world. I know when I found this out too, I felt pretty bad as well. So, this right here is a plush toy of a female mosquito, and it's specifically one species that I look at, so the Aedes aegypti. And you can usually tell this species apart because they have white stripes on their leg and on the back, which is the abdomen. And the female mosquito is a lot larger than the male because they have to blood feed. And they have this specialized mouth part, and so when she lands on you and finds that perfect spot on your skin, she uses these structures in her mouth to saw through your skin and then suck your blood. So, for example, let's say you're sitting down and someone puts in front of you a nice big juicy steak, or if you don't eat meat, like a nice piece of grilled eggplant. You use one hand to hold it down with a fork, and the other hand you're using to slice through the food. So that's what the mosquito is doing. So to them, we're like this big juicy steak where she uses one mouth part to saw through our skin while the other one is holding it down. And once she finds that blood vessel, she then uses the straw like mouth part to suck our blood. And as a parting gift, she also injects her saliva in us, and that's what causes this bite to be itchy. So hopefully by now you've learned something new about the mosquito, but we still have the most interesting thing to talk about, which is what my research is about. So after the female lands on us and takes this blood meal, what do you think her biggest problem will be? Can you think of any issues that the females would face after drinking all that blood? So imagine it's a Monday morning, just like this morning, and you're super sleepy. So you go to Starbucks and you order a venti iced coffee and you drink it all at once because you just can't keep your eyes open. But now that the iced coffee is working its way through your system, you're thinking, oh, I have to pee. And that's pretty much kind of what's happening in the mosquito's head as well, where after the female mosquito lands on you and finds that perfect blood vessel, she takes as much blood as she can. And when she's done, she thinks, oh my God, I really need to pee. So you might be thinking, wait, hold up. Mosquitoes pee. First of all, gross. And how much blood are they even taking? Are they drinking a venti type A blood with 3 shots of espresso? Why do they have to pee right away? So let's do some quick math for a second. So an average mosquito weighs about 2.5 milligrams, which is 1,000th of a gram. So they're very small. And now females can drink almost twice her body weight. So that's 5 milligrams of blood. So I have here 2 little balloons. So this is my unfed female mosquito. And this is after she takes a blood meal. So she pretty much balloons up quite big. And that's huge. So if we were to compare that to a human, that's saying almost a 150-pound person drinking a 300-pound bottle of Pepsi. Or someone like me drinking not just one, not just two, and not just three, but 50 of these huge flasks of water. So imagine that, all that water just running through your system. So obviously, I would never tell you all to drink all this water in a short stand, but if you ever want to test it yourself to see how much water you can drink before really needing to pee. So drinking all this blood poses 2 threats to the female mosquito. One, uh, they blow up like a little balloon. So now this requires more energy for them to fly because she's now twice as heavy. So she won't be able to fly as fast, and because of this, she'll be more prone to predators. And the second, which is what I study, after drinking all that blood, this causes an imbalance to their own blood. So when we think about blood, we usually just think about red blood cells, right? But our blood contains proteins, glucose, ions, and water. And all these components need to be tightly balanced. You never want to have too much water in your blood or too much ions. And it always needs to be in a balance. And this is termed homeostasis. So if we do drink too much water or there's too much ions in our blood, our body responds right away. So, have you ever watched an action movie where it's time for that big final fight and you have that command center? It's in total chaos. There's a million people sitting in front of those really high tech, expensive computer screens, each with a different task. So, that's what's happening in our body when our blood homeostasis is compromised. We need to fix it right away. And how do we deal with that? Hormones. So, hormones are chemical messengers that are released into our blood to tell our body what to do. For example, during puberty, we have hormones that are released into our body telling it to grow. So, mosquitoes also have hormones that are released into their blood telling them to do different tasks. And one of them is to pee. So, when the female is taking our blood, she'll start to balloon up, fill up her tummy with a huge blood meal, and right away, sometimes even before she's done taking our blood meal, she's already starting this digestion process. Her body will take all the nutrients and vitamins and proteins that they need from our blood, and the extra water and ions need to be secreted out right away. And this whole process is termed diuresis, which is this fast fluid secretion. So sometimes they will start this peeing process already on us, and this whole peeing process does take roughly 2 hours. So imagine that for a human, just needing to pee for 2 hours straight. And just so it's clear, when I do say mosquito pee, it's not like humans peeing. It's tiny little droplets that come out. So you would really have to focus on the mosquito to see them peeing. So now that the mosquito's finished peeing, she needs to stop or else she'll remove too much water or too much ions and there'll be nothing left for her. So that's when her body releases another hormone that stops this peeing, and this is termed anti-diuresis. And this way, she's able to balance her own blood again. So these hormones are really critical to the mosquito as they help the female always keep her body system in check and knowing when to pee and not to pee. And that's kind of what my research looks at, the hormones that are released and their regulation, telling the mosquito when to start these processes. So I know you're probably wondering why. Why are you researching mosquito pee? Why are you even researching mosquitoes in general? So you're probably just trying to figure out what kind of person willingly volunteers and wants to work with mosquitoes. So, like I mentioned in my pitch, there are over 3,000 known species of mosquitoes in the world, and they're known for spreading some of the world's worst diseases, such as malaria, yellow fever, and Zika virus. And although small and maybe not as scary as, I don't know, a snake or a lion, mosquitoes are considered one of the most dangerous animals on Earth because they are responsible for more human deaths than any other living creature. And because they transmit these viruses through blood feeding, taking our blood and moving from one host to another, if we learn more about their biology and understand the hormones that are responsible for these important processes, such as diuresis and anti-diuresis, so to pee or not to pee, we can reduce their role as a disease vector in the world. So I hope you all learned something new about the mosquitoes today, knowing that it's only the female mosquitoes that bite us, that they inject their saliva in us, and that they pee. But hopefully, you're a little amazed about this whole peeing process. And the next time you get a mosquito bite, which is hopefully never, but the next time that you do, you know that you're walking around with the urine of the most deadliest animal in the world. That's a really interesting point, but I feel like the reason why mosquitoes are more attracted to humans or actual animals is because we give off cues that allow them to sense that we're there and to take our blood meal. So they're really responsive to the carbon dioxide that we breathe out or the odor that we give off, and they need that blood to be at that mammalian body temperature, so that 37 degrees Celsius. So it's, I feel like it would be really hard to mimic all those human cues, to allow those females to blood feed on that. I think what they're trying to do is to target hormones or critical processes inside either the male or female mosquito to not allow it to spread as disease vectors as much. So in females, if we can stop them from even taking a blood meal in the first place, if we can take out that odor cue or their that taste sensor, so they don't even feel the need to take a blood meal. Or there's a lot of studies right now trying to focus on male fertility. So if we can somehow target their sperm, so they're not even able to develop that, so they won't be able to provide that to the female once they're mating, and that way even if the female does take on a blood meal, she won't be able to lay those eggs, or those eggs won't be able to hatch into successful larvae. So that's why I don't think now they're really targeting the blood feeding or trying to change the host, but more so if we can stop some of these important processes in the mosquito, so they don't have a huge role as a disease vector in general. Yes. So we have a couple cages that we have in our lab, and we rear our own mosquitoes. So that way we know that they're, clean. They're not any type of disease transmitters or carriers. So yeah, we've been rearing our own mosquitoes for a couple years. So that's why sometimes when one of them gets, they escape the cage, then you're like, oh my God, you guys be careful. I let a female out. And then obviously someone like me who the mosquitoes just love for some reason, I come home with bites all over me. Through multiple layers of clothes, they somehow still find a blood vessel. I don't know how. That's a really great question. So this whole transmission of disease, it happens from blood feeding one person and going to multiple different hosts. So when that female mosquito bites you, and takes some of your blood, some of if they've already, let's say, bitten a host that has the disease virus, whether that's malaria, yellow fever, Zika, as they're injecting their own saliva that has some of those viruses that they're able to inject from that host onto you. So that's why it's really important that you're always having some type of repellent or something, especially if you are outside, because when they bite someone that is infected, they take some of that blood, right? When they take their blood, the virus is in that, and then when they go on to the next host and they inject some of their saliva, that virus is transmitted onto you. So it's a really scary process, and you can't really tell which mosquito is infected and which one isn't. So you always just have to be super careful, especially when you go to areas that are very populated with these viruses, just to make sure you get some of those shots and those repellents. I think this is a question I asked, one of the first questions I asked my supervisor, because I was like, I feel like I'm the only one who's getting bit in this lab, no one else is. And honestly, I don't know the perfect answer to this. I do know that some mosquitoes, they have a preference. You remember how I said for that carbon dioxide, for that odor? Um, if you're a heavy breather and you're expelling a lot of carbon dioxide, then that mosquito will be attracted to you because they're sensing that. Um, I don't know what, if your blood runs a little warmer. I don't know, but it's mostly that carbon dioxide that you're exhaling. I know a lot of heavy breathers um, do get bit more. I personally don't feel like I'm a heavy breather, so I don't know. My mom always jokes around and says it's because you kill a lot of them, so they're just seeking out revenge. But for some reason, some mosquitoes, they have more preference towards others than not if it's some type of odor that you're giving off. Someone just said, if I stop breathing, will they not find me? I wouldn't recommend trying that out or testing that. I feel like mosquitoes are one of the most resilient and persistent animals in the world. Sometimes I find that when I dissect a mosquito and I remove the entire gut, they're still able to fly around and move. So I don't know how these mosquitoes are able to fight so much, but even if you were to stop breathing, I'm sure they would find something to pick up on and still bite you. Yes, they're still moving around. I don't know how. I'm like, I took out your entire excretory system. Like, how are you still moving until you fully squish it? But it's weird. I've actually never heard of essential oil based mosquito repellents. Um, I, for someone who does get bit, I don't wear a lot of mosquito repellent. Only if I know I'm going to an area that might have a lot of insects, I'll wear the bug repellents. But that's a good question. I don't really know, but I do know a lot of the repellents that are in stores or in work right now are are barriers for them to, for their like olfactory cues, because that's one of the biggest things. If you were to stop that process in the female mosquito, then obviously she won't be able to sense those cues from that human and take that blood meal. So yeah, maybe, but I've interesting, I've never really heard about the essential oil ones. So they definitely have to be done under microscope. There's no way you can do that just with your naked eye. But we have these really nice dissecting microscopes in our lab, obviously able to magnify at such a high resolution. But we have these very, very fine forceps. It's kind of like the tweezers, and they're very fine, mostly for insect work or if you're working with something very small. And pretty much you pin it down onto a dish. We have little dissection pins that would hold down the mosquito once they're knocked out. So we always make sure that we have knocked it down with some type of carbon dioxide gas, and then you put some solution in and you just pull, and it's super easy once you pull onto that end of the mosquito. So they're usually pinned down like this, and you take your forceps and you pull at the last segment of the abdomen, and when you pull very nicely, the entire alimentary and excretory system kind of comes out, and from there whatever tissue that you're working with, you'll start to kind of navigate through that. But honestly, they're very super simple experiments. I've done mosquito dissections with middle school students where we've taught them how to dissect, and we've even given them pretty blunt pairs of forceps, and they're able to dissect really nicely. And we've even gone one step further and given them Drosophila, which is half the size of a mosquito, those tiny little fruit flies, and they're able to dissect that. So it's super cool. It sounds like it's hard, but once you kind of get that practice, it's really cool. So thank you so much for coming out and listening to my talk. If you want to learn more about our work and what we do, so we are comparative endocrinologists, and our lab specifically looking at the neuroendocrine regulation of the mosquito. So if you want to know more about our work, please check out the website that is in our Hopin page. And there's a bunch of other amazing researchers in our lab. And you can also follow me on Twitter to know more about what I do. Thank you.